want to just give our feedback, or I should say my feedback in the board, I was thinking, but thank you, number one. And number two, it's very lengthy, so, yeah, so it would be a good, as you go through there, to kind of pick out the priorities, where you see the priorities. And it,
Give me like a rules.
okay, all right,
All right.
you have the floor.
So, thank you. What I did was I took, Mr. Chadwick, I took your short, you're calling it the short.
The
survey.
short questionnaire, yeah.
And I made sure that I incorporated everything that was in yours into this one. And the other overview of this questionnaire is that it follows the master plan in terms of sections, topics.
Sure.
And then I guess I'll say that the last thing that I had in mind as I was developing it was that we wanna be very forward-looking. We only do this survey once every 10 years. And the other thing was that I wanted to give the residents, the reason it's so long is it gives the residents context of, what are we talking about? And so it starts with, this is what the master plan, what your planning board, what your town governing board is going to provide in the master plan that's developed, and we're looking for your input. And I also indicate that there's a lot of statistics that are going to be developed, outside of this questionnaire. So you're gonna get your data of population trends and
Right,
whatever else.
exactly.
So, looking forward, I summarized the goals and objectives that were in the existing master plan, but I gave the residents the opportunity to say, okay, is this goal and objective something that we still want for Warren? And if yes, keep it, if not, change, how would you change it? Alright, so that takes up, or do you have some additional vision for Warren in the next 10 years? And so they can add their own goals and objectives. Going to page 4, I don't think most people know what the different zones are that we have
Right.
in Warren. And so, rather than, so I think, Mr. Chadwick, one of your, questions was talking about, different zones, but I gave it the contact, I gave, an entire list, these are all the zones, and then, is there any way that you wanna change them? And again, left them some opportunity for open-ended questions. Now, whether or not you leave the question that Mr. Chadwick put in there for Chubb, I think that you'd be really remiss in not asking the residents what they think, not in a specific context, but in a more general context. Should it be zoned for something else? Should we allow for residential? Should we allow for business? And then, see what you get back. That's why I felt that it's very important for that, and because you got such flack on the zoning that was done prior, the big, the warehouse I'm talking about, when we were thinking about, not we, but when it was being thought of whether or not to put a warehouse there.
Wrong board. That wasn't this board.
Right.
That's why I was a little confused there for a second.
Okay, so, that's what I think, you probably would like to get some input from the residents on, what they want to do with that, so, what is it, 13 acres or something?
Yeah, let me just reiterate, under advice of counsel and from what I know, is we wouldn't necessarily ask what to do with a particular property, nor would we make a veiled question that was easily understood to be talking about a particular property. That specifically is illegal.
Right, okay, but the zoning options, that's not, it's much
So-
broader.
Right, no
Kind of
property
response.
is zoned by itself. Right, so if we gave the impression that we were zoning a particular property a certain way, now, okay, I'm gonna get really legal for a second and pull me in if I'm not correct, but there are mechanisms that are legal that you can rezone a particular property. But it has to go through lots of steps in order to get there.
Right.
Lots of public hearings and
Right.
lots of arguing, whatever, okay? So, but that is 100% outside of the master plan discussion. So a master plan is always in the general sense and never in a specific sense, if that makes sense, on a particular piece of property.
I hear what you're
Okay.
saying. I think it's a shame that you wouldn't get resident input, but I hear what
You
you're
gotta talk to the legislature, no one wants to go to jail, fine, whatever.
Okay. All right, and then I included Mr. Chadwick's question about the vacant office space. And then a little bit on affordable housing. I think in the February,
You jumped there, what page are you on?
I'm on 5.
Okay.
Yep, I got you, I'm following. I'm good.
So, you know, in the February meeting, I think we were talking about, should it be concentrated in one area, spread throughout the township? Should we consider some sort of, transportation? These were like issues that came up, I think, at the February meeting that I tried to integrate into this survey so that you could get, resident feedback on
Right.
that.
Just as feedback, I do like the 5B. Local transportation is definitely an issue. I'm not sure it's a master plan issue in terms of private opportunities for like Uber and Lyft, as opposed to more public, like county paid senior busing for particular
Right,
ages or
right.
so, which can be incorporated into a master plan.
Yeah.
So that, the one thing I would, and again, you know, I don't wanna make this a soliloquy here, but, so board members pop in, you know, the concentrate in one area and the spread throughout the township. Now, my concern with just that particular wording is assuming that we have control over whether it's concentrated in one part. We don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we do, I shouldn't say that. We do to some extent, but to a large extent, we don't. In other words, if we go to court and the court forces us to put up housing in a non-concentrated area, it makes us look like we did it because we asked on the master plan when it wasn't us who did it, it was the court who did it. So, I don't know what the right answer is. All I'm doing is giving feedback as to the concentrated in one area versus not. That being said, it's a really good question in terms of discussion about how to phrase it properly in the master plan as we go forward. So,
Dan, I would just add, I think that's a slippery question
Yeah.
because, you know, even within the context of affordable housing, there's fair market,
yes,
right, and
Right.
and lower income, which we have pushed back on developers who have tried to distinguish.
right.
And I don't think anybody wants to live in the, you know, the lower income housing. They wouldn't, oh, that's that neighborhood over there. And I think we have to be careful not to, you know, call that out.
I think it'd be wise to spread it throughout. because-
Agreed,
Yeah.
but we've seen developers with projects try and position this corner is for that, and we've pushed
I
back.
mean, unfortunately, we've been pushed into corners in several instances, but the, impacts from that have, I mean, there was 60 units of affordable housing across the street from us. It's been integrated in the downtown area for now almost 40 years. Is it a big issue? Probably half.
I don't think it's a big issue. I
It's
mean,
not a big, it
Yeah.
never has been.
Yeah.
It was, you know, part of the part of the framework when that whole, Rolling Hills was built.
Right.
And, we have another one in town, it's new, it's, you know, it's going through its growing pains, but I think it'll settle in.
So moving forward, the
Right, okay.
discussion in that section is just, I'm just gonna punt a little bit on the specific nature of defining that at this point, but I understand what you're saying, and I think we understand that this is important. Matt, thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
Okay, age-restricted housing, I included Mr. Chadwick's,
Right.
question there. Then it goes into traffic and circulation, it wasn't a whole lot I could put
No.
in there, because as you say, everything is sort of county designated.
I do like your bike route, and that would be interesting,
Yeah,
to see if we can do some bike lanes.
and again, I'm thinking 10 years from now, I
Right.
think if you think 10 years from now, you know, we got climate change, we got population increase, we've got, you know, all kinds of explosion of development. And that's why when you develop your questions, I hope you will be thinking in the future. And then community facilities, again, I included some open space
Right.
questions, educational.
And this is very similar to the last one that we just
Yes,
went
yeah,
over, so
right.
this is
A
good
lot
stuff.
of stuff I
Yeah.
copied from the master plan or from Mr. Chadwick's.
And the other submission too, yeah, earlier we spoke about, so that's great,
Right,
thank you.
and so there's nothing more on 7, 8, conservation was,
If I could, would you mind if I just backed up for a second?
Sure,
I don't wanna build, you have number 511, I don't know if that makes sense, section 5, community facilities. So I think one of the aspects that we haven't touched on a whole lot, and I think the board really needs to, I'm not sure it's in the resident survey or our plan discussion itself, but we need to have a frank discussion about emergency services and where they are and response times and what our expectations and what the public's expectations on response times are. So I think thank you for bringing that up.
yeah, that's a good point.
Well, along with that, as far as emergency and rescue squads, have to look towards the future as this town grows. It's gonna be a crisis for our volunteers.
Yes,
And, there should be some questions in there, so people can anticipate what they anticipate would look like in the future.
Right. Yeah, that
You talk about manpower,
manpower, either
I'm
paid
talking
or
about manpower.
paid, unpaid, if there's gonna be a
volunteers,
place,
combination.
Yeah.
how they work. In fact, we probably should get some input from our firehouses.
We've discussed capital parts of it, there really aren't any.